Hello, everyone, again. Thank you for coming back. My name is Alana Whitaker. This is the Digital Green Book Podcast. As you know, I love bringing high caliber, intellectual, articulate, amazing people from the diaspora here and sharing information with you. Along my journey as a founder, I've met a lot of amazing people. I've been able to go to a lot of amazing conferences. And along the way, I recently went to Afrotech and there was a booth for SVB there. Lo and behold, that connected me with this amazing young lady, Vanessa, that we're going to talk to today. And we're going to get into some brass tacks basics about how founders should be preparing themselves if they're considering seeking funding or getting their businesses ready to go out and pitch or just be prepared in general. So thank you so much, Vanessa, for being here this morning.
Of course, I'm really excited to be here and for the conversation. And I think one of the things I'm really excited about is that Afrotech wasn't just one event, right? We're starting to still see the ripple effects of the connections and community that was built over there.
I agree. I think so many amazing connections came out of that particular event for me. I'm probably a little bit atypical because I probably go to upwards of 50 to 70 events a year just because I love that communal feeling. And I love seeking information and connecting with individuals in person. But I know that was like a landmark event because it was like the largest aggregation of Black techies in one spot, all in one go. And it was the first time that people were back outside in a while, some people. That was pretty cool. So I would love to learn a little bit more about you and how you got to the role that you're in now at Silicon Valley Bank. Could you just sort of give us your villain origin story?
Absolutely. So I actually started out in healthcare. So I was an EMT at Yale Hospital and realized that it wasn't really for me. And so I joined this digital healthcare startup called Inbox Health, where I was an early employee there. And I really just loved the startup and innovation scene and got to attend an event actually hosted by SVB. And so that's how I was introduced to SVB. I joined the bank through our associate development program. So we got to rotate throughout different areas within our commercial bank. And really, that's the part of the bank that's focused on the lending. So spending most of my time in Excel. And I really miss being on the founder side, being out in market and getting to work directly with founders. So joined our early stage practice, which is our startup banking team out in Boston, and absolutely loved it. Got to work really closely with founders to help them grow and scale. And so I think during the time of COVID and everything that was going on in the world, I was really reflecting and saw, wow, this is great, all the progress we've been able to make for founders, but I still really wasn't seeing the needle move as much when it came to underrepresented founders. So Black, Latinx, and women. And so internally, I'm part of a group, our client success DEI committee, and we helped to create the new team, which I now lead portfolio management for, which is called New and Strategic Channels. And so this is now focused on Oh, I think I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
I froze for a little bit. And so I was mentioning this new team is really focused on building resources for underrepresented founders. So our focus is on how we can help founders grow and scale from seed idea stage up until an institutional Series A or revenue milestone. And we do that by working with numerous channel partners who are already out in the ecosystem doing the work every day, VC Familia, Digital Undivided. And our goal really is how can we help outside of the banking to make sure that the founders have the information that they need about the ecosystem as well.
Something that sort of spurred this interview that we're having today, we were on the Zoom call the other day, just having a conversation organically about seemingly there's this bridging gap that's missing from a budding, talented founder, full of ideas, full of hunger out there, trying to run 10 million miles an hour, getting everything done for them. They're just out there seeking funding. They don't really have that structure to know how to get themselves together. There are some things out there like accelerator programs. Myself having been through two now, I'm like, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know that I didn't even know that I needed to know. But even getting into the accelerator programs, I was like, man, I wish there was a little bit more guided preemptive education I could have done for myself. And I consider myself someone who does actively try to seek knowledge, but it's a little hard to search for information when you don't even know what you necessarily should be looking for. Um, I feel really blessed and privileged to be able to have the type of audience that I do, where I'm able to talk to VCs, angel investors, and founders to continually try and loop in a comprehensive picture. Like, okay, there's something missing here. Let's try to figure out what it is. So even for me, as I learn more, and of course you only learn more as time goes on and you seek information and things of that nature. Um, but I think something that we shared and was like, oh, well, if I could have gone back and done it a little differently, I would have done it like this. So what is that pre-seed information that founders, before they even seek funding, is there sort of an organized sort of education that aspiring founders should be seeking?
Yeah, I think it starts with just knowing what information is going to be required once you get to the fundraising stage. I think everyone's really excited to dive into fundraising right away, but looking at some of the terminology. What are they going to be asking for? What is a data room? What things need to be included in the data room. Usually we're seeing your cap table, your financial projections, historical data if you do have revenue. So learning that stuff up front is really important so you can make sure to keep track of it. I think a lot of founders are already on the right track and doing exactly what they need to. They may just not be super diligent about keeping track of those items. And that's going to be really, really important, because even if you feel like something, may not be monumentous, it actually could be. And I think we had a really interesting conversation around, okay, how much money, have you put into the business? That's a question that sometimes comes up. And people, think of that usually as a lump sum. But all the little, bits of you paying for your website, you paying someone on Fiverr to help you create something, that's you putting money into your business. And you should total that amount up to talk about it as an investment in your business from yourself. Same with friends and family round as well too. If you have a cousin or an aunt who's giving you money to help create your website, or, do Instagram ads, all of that does count, even though it may not be as traditional. So more so really wanting to give yourself credit for many of the things you're probably already doing, but making sure that you have a really good history and receipt of all of that. So when it is time to talk about it, you can go back and kind of collect all of the information you need. So I would say that's one, starting out with just figuring out, okay, all of the things that are going to be required up front, and what can I keep track of now. One of the things that I recommend to many founders is having some sort of monthly, quarterly, any type of investor update. Even if you don't have any investors on your radar now, this is as much as for you as it is for the community and audience that you're communicating to, and getting into the habit of, really doing a audit of where the company is every month. What does our engagement look like on social media? What does, and I think, when people think about this, they typically see like, okay, it has to be sales, or I have to have a product developed. That's not always the case. One of my good friends, Mary, founder of The Wave Hair Company, she actually built a really amazing community and brand through Instagram. I actually found the company via Instagram because they were doing these hair stories, and they were talking about, okay, what was your journey as a Black woman with, wigs and weaves and braids. And that's actually how I found out about the product before they even had a product. I was following their Instagram. And so when you're able to say, hey, we have this really engaged, captive audience. So we may not have a product yet, but look how much we've grown this community. So when we do have a product ready to launch, that we're ready to go. So I think social media and the community, making sure you're really keeping track of those engagement metrics and numbers, how much your community is growing over time, whether that's email, clicks, Instagram, followers, different things like that, all help to tell the story of how your company is growing even before you may have your full product built out.
I think that's a really good point. And the ironic thing is that is a pain point for some of my more introverted friends who are sort of social media adverse a little bit. They find that part to be a little bit more laborious for them, but it is a very and necessary piece to growing a small business, especially when you're out here competing against larger brands or other brands that are in your same niche or industry. You do have to set yourself apart with storytelling. I know it's something that even I could get better with. One of the happy mediums that I found for myself was doing live and have a live conversation. And for me, that's like evergreen content because I can always revisit this very valuable conversation and all of the many conversations I've been able to have over the past 3 years and refer to them, reference them. But even that, it's an algorithm, girl. Ooh. So that might be a worthwhile investment for some individuals looking hiring a social media manager. I know it's not necessarily cheap, but that might be an investment if you're a more introverted individual or you struggle with consistent content creation. It's definitely something I've looked at myself. But even if you're still working on getting the capital for that, then focusing on ideating your first product is another way you can go. So for the individuals who don't necessarily have that community yet, what would be another piece of advice you would give them that could get investor eyes on them? If they're like still pre-seed round, but they're still growing their community, what would you have them focus on?
I would really focus on what the mission and goal is, the end goal. So, what is your company's mission and values, and how can you create content and talk about that? You also don't have to be the face of your product or brand. So, for those who are an introvert and don't want to be on social media as much, there are a lot of different brand types and profiles. And even I would say go look at some of your favorite brands, go on their social media and see the different types. I'm sure you see some where there is a face of a brand or an influencer who's part of the campaign, or who have that sort of like communist, artsy Instagram, and then some that do just content, and you're getting little bits of content and helpful information based off the sector or the product that they're providing. And so there's different types of ways you could do social media. And I really think it's out thinking about your customer and what type of content that they're going to enjoy and relate to. So, if it's an enterprise SaaS software that you're building, maybe don't go for the artsy Instagram profile, maybe go for more some of the educational content. And I think people also really enjoy seeing the journey of people building things over time. And so it doesn't need to be fully fleshed out. And this is something I think I still struggle with myself. I know everyone does, of like waiting for a perfect final product before just putting something out there. And that does not need to be the case, because as soon as you do that, you get feedback earlier on. And so sometimes I think we could be building so quietly in silos that by the time we get feedback, we're like, oh, I could have fixed this, or I could have developed this at the earliest stage before, I spent that additional money on extra designs or sketches or anything like that. And then I would say one other really important piece is just being really consistent. I think if you are going to do an investor update, if it's monthly, make sure you're sending it out same time every month. If it's quarterly, make sure you're hitting every single quarter. And the reality is, if there are VCs or investors on your target list or profile that you're sending this out to, they may not read it. I'll be honest. They may not be reading every single founder investor update. They probably get so many. But by the time you have that meeting with them, maybe, 6 months to a year from now, when you are ready to fundraise, I'm pretty sure they're going to type your name in their inbox, and they're going to be able to see all that progress and progression and growth over time, which is a really important story to tell about you as a founder. In the early stages, they're really investing in you as an individual and your ability to take an idea and company and grow and scale it really, really quickly. So you want to make sure you're able to see and illustrate that growth over time.
And that's another thing, consistency. A few lives ago, I had a wonderful conversation about founders and mental health, burnout and fatigue. And that was one of the pain points, was finding the energy for consistency in lieu of all of that. Oftentimes, a lot of these founders are either solo, team of two, small team. So they're wearing many hats in many roles. So I do say delegate, y'all. As you can hear, this is probably the fifth individual sit in an important seat saying it, consistency matters much. So and there's other metrics that might not be as robust or built out your ecosystem just yet. So if it is content creation and if it is showing your progression and growth over time, which is one of the determining factors that can lead to you getting funding or investment or attention. I know some of the conversations I've had with y'all about content, but it is that there's no other way to gauge it otherwise. If you think about it, if you don't have a product yet and you're still working on your community, what other metric would they really have to do other than what you're telling in your story? Yeah. So Vanessa, another thing that I'm really interested in is do you keep a rubric for your what you like to see when you're preparing to invest or help a small company out? What is there a definitive check go by?
I don't think there is one uniform checklist. I think one thing that's really important is to kind of understand your niche, like what sector are you in? That's going to make, a lot of the advice that you're going to get. I would kind of filter that by, okay, is this person in my sector? What we see for consumer, also known as CPG businesses versus direct to enterprise, very different things that investors are looking at. So for an enterprise company or traditional SaaS company, they're really looking to see, okay, what does your churn look like? Sales, where are you in terms of product development? More of the community side, I would say, is for consumer focused companies, but there are some key components, irregardless, that you're going to want to make sure that you have in your deck and that you're able to communicate. And even if you don't have the deck built out now, really good things to start thinking about and talking about with your team, even as you're hiring and convincing other people to come on this journey with you. Why are you the right team to build this right now? And I find people either hit one or the other, they don't hit two. So why are you the right team? Like early stage, pre-seed, seed. As I said, they're investing in you as a founder. There's not that much data to go off of. So a lot of the conviction is in you and your ability, and you really want to make sure that you're really clear about that. I like to have the team slide right up front in a pitch deck so that they get really excited and understand your background. And then the why right now, right? There's really great ideas, but especially even as we're thinking about this 2023 economy and down cycle and everyone's a little bit nervous about the market, you may get questions from investors if you're building, a luxury consumer product. Is this the right time for this product right now? And, I personally think that if you feel that this is the right time to build what you need to, it's always going to be the right time. But how are you illustrating that? And even in this downward economy, pre-seed and seed investments are really looked at through about a 10-year horizon. So you'll be okay. There's still going to be money and capital being deployed in this next year. But how do you pitch that, right? And so maybe it's thinking that, okay, people may not be spending as much money on large luxuries. So they're going to go to like little luxuries, like, consumer goods and stuff. They may not be able to take that vacation. So they're going to focus more on self care. So there's always an angle and avenue, but understanding that and being able to explain the why right now and why this is so important right now is going to be critical. Think about COVID and all the companies that really just grew crazy over that time. Some of those, it was really interesting. Some of those companies talked about, they were getting ready to close down before COVID or their journey. And then something happened in the world that made it a really important time and conviction for their company to grow and scale really quickly. So understanding and having those two key elements down is going to be really critical.
I can definitely say that I learned the last, I would say even 6 months. I really focused the back half of this year. There's only 2 days left. Oh my God. The back half of this year on going to as many pitch competitions as I could as an observer, and really watching how seasoned businesses were pitching themselves, young businesses were pitching themselves, and finding what those key golden moments, those highlights were, and really focusing in on the companies that won. I'm still in awe. Like there's 4 or 5 of them that I can name off the top of my head that were very impressive. Um, I went to a bunch of different tech stars, Fearless Fun, uh, Black Girl Ventures. Like there's a lot of pitch competitions out in the ecosystem that I wasn't even aware of. So learning some of that nomenclature for me, somebody coming from healthcare as well, this is a whole new world in tech that I didn't even know that existed. So I'm like, how many other things don't I know? What language do I need to pick up? Oh, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm a founder. Like it's a whole reshaping, or what do you want to call it, paradigm shift to sort of immerse yourself in this space. And that's something I'm looking forward to aggregate over the next year, because I love having conversations with individuals, going into this year, 2023. I want to start having more plain language conversations like this, because there's people out here who've been grinding inside of the founder ecosystem for some years, and they still, like we were saying on the phone the other day, they're not aware of some of those basic languages that they need to be saying to catch the attention of some of the people looking to invest in them as well. But definitely, I wholeheartedly agree with your comment about small luxury items. There was a young lady, who had a high-end perfume item that she was deploying at a Fearless Fun pitch competition. And as you know, fragrances are some of the most expensive liquids per volume. Like you're charging 60, 70, 80, 100 or more dollars for a fraction of an ounce when you really think about it. But she did a very good job connecting it in the way that you just did. Like self-care is more important now than ever.
And for founders as well too. I think, being a founder is so difficult. And one of the things I know you and I have discussed in 2023, really making sure that we support all the founders, this community, and having people take care of themselves and start with that. My mom always makes the joke on the airplane, they tell you like put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others, because it really does affect, your ability to lead as a leader in how you're taking care of yourself. And that's going to reflect within your team and your business overall.
That's such a true statement. And I honestly, even to bring it more culturally relevant, I think that's not something that most of us honestly know how to do, self-care. Um, when I was having a mental health discussion a few weeks ago, shared experience from a lot of people. Like they're like, I'm used to running on fumes. Some people have kids, they got a family, and they're still trying to manage their business, and they're like catharting all this energy all over the place. I'm like, hey, slow down, pump your brakes. But realistically, they're like, I can't slow down because I have to get my KPIs, but I have to pitch, I have to. So it's interesting. I would like to see in this founder VC angel ecosystem more ways to support founders in that way, even if it's not direct capital deployment. Maybe the call to action would be founder rehab, founder rehabs or respites, or founder retreats or founder intensives, or not even necessarily an accelerator, but somewhere understanding the unique ills of individuals creating from nothing, what that entails, and giving them some sort of hope, encouragement type thing.
Absolutely. And I think what you're building with the digital green book community is really important and really needed because founders need each other. Oftentimes, you're going to be building something that your friends or family may not understand. They may not understand one of your potential customers ghosting on a Zoom meeting, like how that could be critical at the end of the world for you. And so I think making sure that you're intentional about creating other safe spaces and communities for yourself outside of your personal landscape and understanding, I think in our community, we talk a lot about how people are shocked that sometimes that initial support isn't from family or friends and it's from strangers because it just may be really difficult. People we often see sometimes set their own limitations and expectations on other people. So if they may not believe that, what you're doing, they may never want to go start a business from scratch themselves and may not believe that's possible for themselves and may be projecting some of that onto you. So the best thing to do is get friends who already are doing it, other founders, they'll understand you, you could talk to them. And so I think that's really, really important, but something you have to be intentional about doing as well.
You said a mouthful right there, and it's so interesting. I started hearing that quite a bit. Luckily, I'm very blessed. My family is very supportive of what I do. They know I'm a very odd duck, so they're like, "Yep, whatever Web3, yep, go ahead, girl." But interestingly enough, like I have seen that in a lot of my founder friends. Their family or sometimes their ecosystem around them doesn't really understand what they're doing, and they find stronger bonds or unity in strangers and make a new family out of that, because it is sort of hard articulating what you do sometimes to people who don't get it. But I do
Yeah.
want to share screen briefly. You were so gracious to share ways to connect with you individually. So this first link that I have here on the bottom of the screen, this is Vanessa's link tree. You can connect with her, and there's a lot of educational resources down here that you can watch. It looks like you have some events, probably some upcoming events next year as well.
Absolutely. One of the things that our team does monthly is an Ask Me Anything session. So you'll be able to see the link for that live on here. Definitely set up some time to connect with us. One of the things I always have to say is people think that, I have to raise $6 million from a large institutional VC to work with SVB. That's not the case. It's an entirely free banking experience. So we're here to help you at the early stages. And so not even with SVB alone, but so many times I think, founders kind of deselect and filter themselves out for things that they actually qualify for. And it's like, just take the chance, have the meeting with SVB. We'll definitely be able to help provide some of those industry insights. We do a state of the markets report quarterly as well as sector by sector as well that goes into some of these nuances and figuring out, okay, what is up with everything Web3 right now and what's going on after, all the Twitter scandals and everything, and how are investors thinking. And so even being on Twitter is another really great one. I'm like a silent observer on Twitter. I don't tweet too much, but I like to be in the know of what's going on with the community. And so that's another thing, making sure that you're getting news sources that are relevant to you and your sector right now, so you're up to date. You don't want to have conversations with a customer or an investor and kind of not really know about something major that happened in your sector. And I also want to shout out Sherelle Dorsey from The Plug. Amazing resource. If you are not subscribed, make sure you are subscribed. Comes directly to your inbox of everything that you need to know about the intersects of being an underrepresented founder in entrepreneurship as well.
I'm so excited to connect with Sherelle. She'll be at Synapse coming up on Valentine's Day, so I'm super excited about that. I laud everything that she does. Like I'm gonna be you one day in my own way, of course. Like I'm really impressed about her interview process and the community that she's cultivated. So most definitely. And then the other link that you also shared here, which I'll put this up on the screen as well, openvc.app. Let me put that banner down here. So tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about this site.
So OpenVC, you could go on here and search for target investors. And I think one of the things, again, even before you start the fundraising round, think about who you would want, your top 10 dream VCs or angels to be, and start looking at that criteria early on. I think sometimes if we're reactive, we're like, oh, well, I would have focused more on marketing if I knew they cared so much about, emails and user signups and growth, or I would have focused more on getting my product fully developed because I didn't know that this investor wanted to see that. And so knowing is upfront. Wi-Fi is not on my side today,
It's
but
okay. We here
we
though.
we are here. And so, what I would really encourage every founder to do is go on here, look at some VCs, and it'll really help you. What I love about this resource, they could filter really deeply. So, filter and figure out, okay, who are even my top 3 target investors? What is the criteria that they are thinking and looking about? And then the next step is go look at their portfolio companies, look at who they have invested in. Sometimes, even you'll see by doing some of this homework, hey, this investor says that they invest in a lot of women and are really interested in blockchain. Go to their portfolio. Is that actually reflective of what they say their investment thesis is? So I know it could be a struggle sometimes figuring out, okay, this is what this investor says that they're interested in. And I think I have all these things, but then I'm not hearing a response back. The portfolio is a really good indication of where the investor is actually interested in, making sure that they invest in your sector, size, and stage is like your first filter that you need to do. A lot of times people are reaching out to investors that don't even invest at that stage. So make sure you're targeting pre-seed and seed, and reach out to the portfolio companies and talk to them. You may not get, a response back from the VC, but I guarantee you another founder is going to be empathetic and respond to you. Most of the time, they're probably going to be one step ahead of you and they could give you some advice. I've had some really funny stories of founders talking to other founders in an investor's portfolio and realizing, actually, I don't want to work with this investor. If, the portfolio companies are going to give you that really raw, unfiltered advice of what their experience is actually like, and they are the best introduction as well, too.
Mhm.
Sometimes people talk about a warm intro.
Mhm.
A founder who the investor has already invested in is going to be a really, really great intro. They already have conviction in that founder, and they're going to be able to help you from the founder side to understand what they're looking for as well too.
That makes a ton of sense to me. And we often don't talk about that enough. I know I've had a couple of conversations about actually screening your VCs. The last interview that I just did with Luke Cooper, that was a theme of our conversation as well. My main question was, sometimes these smaller businesses, the founders are feeling like they're in this disadvantaged position because they're doing their best to protect their IP, but in that same vein, they know they need to scale, they know they need to grow, they're looking for that investment, but it's hard to sometimes it's hard for people to say no when they see that check sitting there. So I was asking him about some of the ways of screening VCs as well, and it's echoing what you're saying now. It's like, hey, maybe I do a little bit getting under the hood. And I think you just dropped a gem there. Like, talk to some of the other people that they've actually cut checks for. What was their experience with that? What was that like?
And I
So
really
number
want to get off this idea that like you're lucky to have an investor invest in your company. They are investing in your company because they think that your business is going to make a profitable return for them. It's not a favor, it's not charity. Trust me, they spend a lot of money on due diligence. They're investing in you because they could see a profit. And so as a founder, you're giving them the opportunity to make a profit from you and what you're building. So make sure you're, as you said, qualifying them as well too. I think it's very easy to get, caught up in the excitement, and especially knowing that there's not that much funding going around for underrepresented founders right now. It could be really difficult, but it's a long-term relationship. That investor is going to help determine what your next round is going to look like. Can they make introductions to VCs at the next stage? And so it's really important. I just really want founders to understand that you're building something that is going to make someone, including yourself, very rich one day. And that's also a privilege for them to be on your cap table and to invest in you.
That part. And I think that's beautiful, beautiful thought process to embrace, because it really is a mindset to make sure you're not thinking from a scarcity mindset, and more so of a see it as an investment mindset. Because I will say that is an undercurrent that I have felt in the founder ecosystem to some degree, and understandably so. Understandably so. But getting out of that Hunger Games mentality and getting more into the why are you here originally? You have a phenomenal idea and people want to ride that wave. So it's going to be this beautiful energy of figuring out how to display yourself and protect yourself at the same time. And whatever you need to do with your minimum viable product to generate revenue so you're not dependent on those scaling funds is usually what I recommend in general. Like, if you can do it on your own, do what you need to do on your own. But this should be these sorts of funds should be a supplement and not a life vest sort of situation. Um, Before we part ways, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I sort of want to get your perspective, being a former founder yourself and now sitting in the seat that you're sitting in. What is something that you personally assess is in the ecosystem as far as people being more prepared to sit in front of you now in the role that you do? Even though you accept everyone with open arms and you're very willing to mentor, coach, explain what's happening in this ecosystem around them, what are some things that you wish were occurring so that when people did sit in front of you, they were a little better prepared?
I would say the number one thing is understanding how to take advice. So, as a founder, especially as an underrepresented founder, you're going to get a lot of advice, and not all of it is always relevant to your business. Not all of it is good for your business. So, kind of, I think being able to like dissect and understand the sources of where you're getting information from and what is the reasoning for that. I think as a founder, there's going to be a lot of services marketed towards you, a lot of things, and understanding how to one take feedback and acknowledge, okay, this makes sense for my business, and then just accepting some things and letting them go. You don't have to take all the advice that's given to you, but the way I'm able to see this through founders is by the research that they know and how confident and strong they are in the understanding of their sector and their space and their business. A founder who comes to me and says, Vanessa, I am amazing at building a brand and, getting the user experience done for this product. Marketing is my blind spot, and that's where I need help. And I need someone in that space who can help me. So being able to easily identify what your blind spots are and asking for very, very targeted help is what I see really sets the, seasoned founders apart from, a first-time founder, someone new to the space, is kind of doing that internal assessment and really asking very targeted questions for help. We had earlier in the conversation talked about the investor update, whether it's going to be monthly or quarterly. I always encourage founders, have asks in there, always have some asks of what you would like. If that's the easiest way for people to help you. And I've seen where it's like a seasoned founder, they're going to link maybe a few LinkedIns that they would like an intro to, write up the introduction template for you, make it easy for people to help you, I think is really going to help you move and scale and grow quickly. And you talked about asking for help and needing help in the beginning as well. And I think it's really about being able to identify areas where you're struggling and then being able to move forward very quickly. So I know a little bit more, philosophical than we intended, but I think that's going to be a really important experience. And then on the tactical side, making sure that your data is really just organized and having and collecting all the information. So, I've seen founders throw great events or do great things, and they're like, oh, we forgot to take pictures, or we forgot to get interviews or people to get feedback on the product, or we didn't do this and we didn't do that. And they may have had a great event, great launch, but then there's key things that it's like you're not going to be able to go back and historically get if you don't do in real time.
I know that's something that I've even struggled with on my own. In my other, like I have a few businesses. When you are working with a smaller team, it's difficult to try and capture all those things all at the same time, but prioritizing those things that's a phenomenal piece of advice. So, there's ideas coming in my mind even now that those are things that founders struggle with, because I know in the moment when I'm throwing an event or something like that, I'm not worried about some of those other things. I'm just trying to make sure things go off quickly.
Yeah.
But maybe there should be like a founder resource business. That could be a really good business right there. Okay, y'all. Somebody hop on that. I'm not mad if somebody hops on that idea and starts helping out, because we definitely need it. But I really do thank you for everything, and I would love to have you back on in the future, just for a growth check-in and to see how you grow as an individual, because I think the work that you do is phenomenal. It's important to have individuals who I can see a reflection of myself in, working in banks, working in investment, sitting in VC seats, sitting in seats of angels, and being willing to sit down and talk and take the time to explain to people, hey, here's some things that you might want to work on, which will make it a little bit easier for me to help you. So kudos to you. Many, many, many hats off. Just grateful for you, Vanessa.
Well, thank you so much. And as I said, I'm excited to support and see where the Digital Green Book community grows and how we can continue to work together in 2023. And I think, for the founders and anyone in this community, it's really important to stay rooted in our experience of why we're doing what we're doing and supporting each other. And so, make sure that if you're watching this, subscribe to Digital Green Book and support the community or another founder any way you can.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. So see you next time. The next chat I'll be having is about getting hired in tech space. If you are not in tech and you're looking to transition into tech, you definitely want to tune in. If you're in tech and you want to upskill, you definitely want to tune in. So thank you for coming out. And make sure you connect with Vanessa on all her socials. I dropped the link. In fact, I'll put that up here one more time before we roll out the link tree. And let me grab that banner. But definitely, I'm super grateful for you and looking forward to connecting with you in the new year in 2 days. Oh, good.
Cheers to 2023.
Cheers. Yay.